Hello everyone, my name is Jacob Walter. I will be presenting information about human actions linked to firefly population decline and some of the ways that we can hope to address this through policy changes and whatnot. What I am using is a data set collected from massaudubon.org. It includes voluntary firefly observations across the United States and even other countries as well. But we'll be focusing on the United States and Canada for the purposes of this data set. What I want to talk through is what are the weather conditions and the biomes that fireflies live in, and then look into some of the man-made causes that may be leading to their population decline and some of the ways that we can hope to address them. So first, looking at weather conditions, what we can see is that, first of all, the total sightings in the United States tend to be on the eastern part of the country in the Northeast. That's where most fireflies sightings occur. These also tend to occur during the summer months like June and July. That's where fireflies tend to be most active, and that's in part due to the warmer temperatures that come from that, as you can see in these plots on the left here, where firefly sightings tend to happen around 60, 70, 80 degrees, that kind of region of temperature in Fahrenheit. Next, looking at wind speeds, fireflies being small insects prefer to be out when the wind speeds are low. And then lastly, fireflies tend to be most active on clear nights when there's not a lot of cloud cover or rain. Now looking at the biomes that fireflies are active in, fireflies tend to be active in more grassy or tall grass biomes, but also in forests. Some of the reason that there's not as much representation of forests here is that people don't tend to live in forests as much as they live in areas with grass or tall grass. But these are the regions that fireflies tend to be most active in, as opposed to, say, beaches. They're not nearly as active there. Now, looking at what are some of the causes of firefly decline, the two main causes that we want to look at are pesticides. What you can see here is that those who do not use pesticides are almost 3 times more likely to observe fireflies as those who do. Similar story for weed killer. Those who do not use weed killer are far more likely to observe fireflies than those who do use weed killer. So what we can kind of conclude from that is, pesticides and weed killers, these are various chemicals that are meant to kill, bugs and weeds, and these can have negative impacts on firefly populations as well. So it makes sense that they would have a negative correlation there. The next thing to note is golf courses. What we can see here is that those who don't live near a golf course or are, have one that's farther away are much more likely to observe fireflies than those who don't. And again, this makes sense because, golf courses, they're treating their grass with pesticides and weed killers and that same sort of thing. So it kind of echoes the point that these things are having a negative impact on firefly populations. Whereas if you look at something like a swimming pool, it's a far weaker correlation here, and street lights and nearby light sources also do not have as strong of a correlation with firefly populations. This may be due to the fact that people who are observing these fireflies, they're observing it from their yards or places like that where there's street lights and lights from their homes. So this could be skewing the data in that sense, because I know a lot of it's often been theorized that light pollution has a negative impact on fireflies as well. So with that in mind, what are some of the actions that we can take, perhaps in forms of policy, to address this problem? I would say limiting the use of pesticide and weed killer would be one of the biggest things, and also kind of enforcing that at a high level. For people like farmers, or in this case golf courses, to say you can only use so much pesticide or weed killer, or perhaps not at all for certain certain situations. Figuring out ways that are smart that can try and reduce our usage of pesticide and weed killer, or even reducing the number of golf courses or the size of the golf courses to help better support firefly populations. So with that in mind, those are the kind of policy recommendations I would make, and I would hope that with those changes we would be able to help sustain and rebuild our firefly populations. Thank you very much.